A waitress is fired for simply being kind to a black entrepreneur at an upscale restaurant. Humiliated and jobless, she believes her life is ruined until the next day, when an unexpected twist changes everything. The man she helped turns out to be a powerful CEO, offering her a life-changing opportunity. Meanwhile, the restaurant that fired her faces the consequences of its unfair decision. What started as injustice becomes a story of karma, second chances, and the power of doing the right thing. A waitress smiles as she serves a customer, completely unaware that this simple act of kindness will cost her everything. Sarah, a dedicated and hard-working waitress, moves through the elegant restaurant with practiced ease, balancing trays and offering warm service to every guest. But when she notices that Jordan, a black entrepreneur dining alone, is being ignored by the other waitstaff, she steps in, treating him with the same respect as any other patron. A simple gesture, one she believes is just part of doing her job, but not everyone sees it that way. The restaurant owner watches from a distance, disapproving. His gaze lingers as Sarah chats with Jordan, ensuring he gets the quality service he deserves. Then, without warning, she is called aside and fired on the spot. No discussion, no explanation beyond a vague accusation of unprofessionalism. The truth is clear. She is being punished for nothing more than treating someone fairly. As Sarah stands there stunned and humiliated, she believes her world has just crumbled. But what happens next will change her life in ways no one could have predicted. Have you ever witnessed unfair treatment in the workplace? Tell us in the comments and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories. The restaurant shimmered with elegance, its floor-to-ceiling windows revealing a breathtaking view of the city skyline illuminated against the night. Soft jazz played in the background, blending with the quiet murmurs of well-dressed patrons enjoying their candlelit meals. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved seamlessly between tables, refilling glasses and taking orders with well-rehearsed politeness. This was a place where the wealthy dined, a sanctuary of exclusivity where image mattered as much as the food being served. Amidst the sea of tailored suits and designer dresses sat Jordan, dressed in a simple black hoodie. He was successful, a self-made entrepreneur, yet used to the looks he often received in places like this: subtle glances, slight hesitations from waitstaff, the occasional assumption that he was in the wrong place. Tonight was no different. Despite being a paying customer, he had been sitting at his table for nearly 20 minutes with no service. Other diners who had arrived after him were already sipping their drinks, their orders placed, while he remained unnoticed. From across the room, Sarah, a waitress known for her warm demeanor, watched the scene unfold. She had worked in the industry long enough to recognize what was happening. Jordan wasn't being ignored by accident. She saw the small gestures, the way her coworkers subtly avoided his table, how the hostess glanced at him twice before reluctantly seating him. It wasn't the first time she had witnessed this sort of thing, but something about tonight felt different. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed a menu and approached Jordan's table with a friendly smile. "Good evening, sir. I'm sorry for the wait. Can I get you something to start?" Jordan looked up, slightly surprised but appreciative. "Thanks. Yeah, I'll take a coffee to start." Sarah nodded, quickly jotting down his order before heading to the kitchen. As she walked away, she felt the weight of a stare pressing into her back. She turned slightly and saw the restaurant owner standing near the bar, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He had noticed what she had just done, and from the sharpness in his gaze he wasn't pleased. She ignored it, reminding herself that she was just doing her job. But deep down, she had a feeling that tonight wouldn't end the way she expected. Sarah moved quickly, making sure Jordan received the same quality service as any other guest. She returned with his coffee, placing it carefully in front of him with a warm smile. "Let me know if you need anything else," she said, her tone genuine. Jordan nodded, appreciating the service. "Thank you. I was starting to think I was invisible." His words weren't bitter, just a quiet acknowledgement of something that had likely happened to him too many times before. Sarah felt a pang of frustration but kept her expression neutral. "Not while I'm here." Before she could, "Step away!" a sharp voice cut through the soft hum of conversation. "Sarah." A word. She froze, recognizing the cold, clipped tone of her boss before she even turned around. The restaurant owner stood a few feet away, arms crossed, his gaze locked onto her like a predator sizing up its prey. His expression was a mixture of irritation and authority, and the moment she met his eyes, she knew something was wrong. The murmurs in the restaurant quieted as people turned their attention to the unfolding scene. Sarah swallowed hard and walked toward him. "What is it?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed, keeping his voice just loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. "We have a certain standard to uphold, and you're wasting time." Sarah blinked, confused. "Wasting time? I was just serving a customer." The owner's eyes flicked toward Jordan, then back to her. "You know exactly what I mean." A few guests exchanged glances, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. She wasn't stupid. She knew exactly what was happening. The owner wasn't upset that she was wasting time. He was upset that she had served the one customer he clearly didn't want there. Jordan set his coffee cup down, his expression unreadable, but there was a tension in his posture now. He was listening. So was everyone else. Then the owner did something that made Sarah's stomach drop. "You're done here," he said flatly. "Get your things and leave." The restaurant fell into a stunned silence. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. "Wait, what?" she breathed, barely able to process what she had just heard. The owner's expression remained cold, detached. "I don't tolerate unprofessionalism. You're fired." A few diners nodded in quiet approval, while others looked down at their plates, unwilling to get involved. The reality of the moment hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. She had just lost her job over nothing. Before she could find the words to respond, Jordan stood up. "Are you serious?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The weight of his presence alone made the owner hesitate just for a moment. "She was just doing her job. You're firing her for being decent?" More guests turned to watch, waiting to see how this would unfold. The owner stiffened, clearly caught off guard. But instead of backing down, he squared his shoulders, doubling down on his decision. "This is my restaurant, and I make the rules." Jordan held his gaze for a long moment, his jaw tightening. But instead of arguing, he did something no one expected. He smirked, like he knew something the owner didn't. Sarah, still reeling from the shock, had no idea that this night, the worst night of her life, was about to take a turn no one saw coming. The tension in the restaurant was suffocating. Every eye was now on Jordan and Sarah. The quiet murmur of conversation had faded into an eerie silence, broken only by the faint clinking of silverware as some guests awkwardly resumed eating, pretending not to watch. But they were watching. Everyone was. Jordan's expression remained calm, but there was a sharpness in his eyes as he took a step toward the owner. "You still haven't answered my question," he said, his voice steady but firm. "You're firing her for what? Treating me like every other customer?" The owner scoffed, straightening his suit jacket as if the confrontation was beneath him. "We have a standard to uphold," he said coolly. "I can't have my staff wasting time entertaining customers who—" He stopped himself just short. As if realizing he was about to say too much, Jordan arched an eyebrow. "Customers who what?" His voice was deceptively light, but there was an unmistakable challenge behind it. The owner hesitated for half a second before his lips curled into a sneer. "Look, I don't have to explain my decisions to you. This is my establishment. My rules." A few nearby diners exchanged uneasy glances. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, suddenly aware that the situation had escalated beyond a simple employee dismissal. Sarah stood frozen, her stomach in knots, unsure if she should speak or stay silent. She had been humiliated enough for one night. Then a voice came from across the room, soft but clear. "She's the only one who treated him like any other customer." Heads turned toward the speaker, a middle-aged woman in an elegant black dress, sitting near the window. She wasn't smiling, wasn't angry, just stating a fact. Her tone carried weight. A murmur rippled through the restaurant. Some guests nodded slightly while others avoided eye contact, realizing they had either ignored or condoned what had just happened. The owner's jaw tensed, but he said nothing. Jordan, however, smiled. Not an amused smile. A knowing one. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and dialed a number. The owner watched, confused, his irritation now mixed with uncertainty. Jordan lifted the phone to his ear. "Hey, it's me," he said casually. "Yeah, I need a meeting set up. No, not tomorrow. Tonight." He glanced at the owner, his smirk widening. "You just fired the wrong person." He hung up without another word, turned to Sarah and nodded toward the door. "Come on," he said. "Let's go." Sarah hesitated, still processing everything, before finally picking up her apron and tossing it onto the nearest table. The owner didn't stop them. He was too busy standing there, fuming, as he realized that something had just shifted completely, out of his control. As Sarah followed Jordan out the door, she had no idea that this night, the worst night of her life, was about to lead to something she never could have imagined. The next morning, Sarah woke up still feeling the sting of humiliation from the night before. The scene replayed in her mind. Her boss's cold dismissal, the stunned silence of the restaurant, Jordan's knowing smirk as he made that mysterious phone call. She had walked out with her head held high, but the reality was sinking in now. She was unemployed. Rent was due in 2 weeks, and she had no backup plan. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She barely glanced at it, expecting a bill reminder or rejection from one of the dozens of jobs she had applied for in the past. But when she finally checked the screen, her breath caught. Unknown number. Hesitantly, she answered. "Hello?" Sarah. The voice on the other end was deep, confident, familiar. Jordan. She sat up instantly. "Jordan, how did you get my number?" He chuckled. "Let's just say I have connections. Listen, I've been thinking about what happened last night. You didn't deserve that. And I don't like seeing good people get punished for doing the right thing." Sarah frowned, confused. Yeah, well, life's not always fair. That's true, Jordan agreed, but sometimes it is. There was a brief pause before he continued. I own a luxury restaurant chain. Several, actually, and I need people like you. People who actually care about customers, who treat everyone with respect, no matter what they look like. If you want it, there's a job waiting for you. Sarah's heart nearly stopped. She must have heard him wrong. Wait, what? She asked, shaking her head as if trying to make sense of his words. You own a restaurant chain? Not just a restaurant chain, Jordan corrected. One of the biggest hospitality businesses in the city. Last night wasn't just dinner for me. I was looking at potential locations for a new high-end concept. That's why I was there. Sarah couldn't speak. The man she had served, the one her former boss had dismissed so easily, was actually one of the most influential figures in the industry. You don't have to decide now, Jordan continued. But I see potential in you, and I'd rather have you working for someone who values what you bring to the table. Sarah felt her throat tighten. Less than 24 hours ago, she had been fired in front of an entire restaurant. Now, she was being offered a chance most people would only dream of. She started, then paused, swallowing the overwhelming mix of emotions rising in her chest. I don't know what to say. Say yes. She exhaled sharply, a disbelieving laugh escaping her lips. Yes. Meanwhile, back at the restaurant where she had been fired, things weren't going as smoothly. The fallout had begun almost immediately. One diner had recorded the entire scene and posted it online, exposing the blatant discrimination. Within hours, the video had gone viral. Comments poured in, slamming the restaurant for its unfair treatment, with many calling for a boycott. Bad reviews flooded in overnight. What had once been a sought-after dining experience was now a symbol of everything wrong with the industry. Regular patrons canceled reservations, social media exploded with backlash, and by noon, the restaurant's rating had plummeted. The owner, the same man who had fired Sarah without hesitation, was now scrambling to do damage control. But it was too late. The world had already decided. Sarah stepped into the grand dining hall of Jordan's luxury restaurant, her uniform crisp, her posture confident. It had only been a few weeks since the night that changed everything, but her life was already unrecognizable. She had gone from a struggling waitress, barely making ends meet, to a respected restaurant manager at one of the city's most prestigious establishments. The transition had been overwhelming at first. She wasn't used to people actually valuing her input, asking for her opinions, or treating her as an equal. But she adapted quickly, fueled by the memory of the night she was humiliated for simply doing the right thing. Unlike the toxic environment of her old job, Jordan's restaurant thrived on respect and professionalism. The staff worked together, the customers were treated with equal care, and no one was judged based on appearance. For the first time in years, Sarah didn't dread going to work. Instead, she found herself excited, knowing that she was part of something built on fairness and integrity. Meanwhile, the restaurant that fired her was crumbling. The viral video of her firing had sparked outrage across social media, and people didn't forget. Reservations plummeted, longtime customers stopped coming, and the restaurant's once stellar reputation was now tainted. The backlash wasn't just online. Employees began quitting, unwilling to work for a business that had exposed itself as discriminatory. Within weeks, the owner, the same man who had so easily dismissed Sarah, was now struggling to keep his doors open. One evening, after a particularly successful night at Jordan's restaurant, Sarah found herself in his office, standing across from the man who had given her a second chance. Jordan leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile on his face as he glanced up at her. "So, how was your first full day as a manager?" Sarah let out a breath, shaking her head in disbelief. "Honestly, if you had told me a month ago that I'd be here, I would have laughed." Jordan smirked. "Life's funny like that." Sarah hesitated, then looked him in the eye, her expression turning serious. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for the job, but for believing in me." Jordan's smile didn't fade, but his expression softened. "I didn't just help you that night," he said. "You helped yourself by doing the right thing." Sarah nodded, finally understanding what he meant. She had stood up for what was right, even when it cost her everything. But in the end, doing the right thing had led her to something greater than she ever imagined. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was proof that integrity always wins. One act of kindness can change everything. Never let injustice go unchallenged. Sarah could have stayed silent that night, ignored the unfair treatment, and simply done what was expected of her. But instead, she chose to do the right thing, even when it cost her everything. In the end, that one moment of integrity led her to an opportunity greater than she ever imagined, while the place that wronged her faced the consequences of its actions. Fairness, respect, and human decency should never be optional. They should be the standard. Have you ever seen someone face unfair treatment but rise above it? Share your story in the comments. Do you think businesses still judge people unfairly based on appearance? Let's start a conversation. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and share it with someone who believes in fairness. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful real-life stories. You won't want to miss what's next.